Yeah.
Okay, it's recording.
Oh, there we go.
Here we go. Did you guys get the little box?
Got
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
Oh my goodness, there's so many people.
Welcome, everybody. Everybody is automatically set to mute, so we will allow you to unmute yourself when we get to the AMA section. But for now, as we have our speaker portion, we definitely want to make sure that we can hear everything. Sometimes there's noises outside. We just want to make sure you're getting the information as clearly as possible. Okay, so we're going to give it another minute just to see. Yeah, so we have 28 people right now. Exciting. To everyone with the video, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, hi.
Well, hello.
I see some
So how are you guys doing?
Excited. Ooh. Anyone want to answer?
Doing good. I would say so.
Yes.
Made it through another week. It is Thursday, right? Yeah, it's Thursday.
Yes. Do you all know that we've been in shelter in place here in the Bay for a little over 100 days now?
Oh, that's crazy. I just stopped counting, keeping track of it.
It's like, what month is it?
Amazing.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna get started. So a couple groundkeeping things. First of all, welcome to everyone for coming to our first ever EOP AMA series. I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for coming. I know it's later in the day, but we're also hoping that because we know you have classes, some of you have summer classes, or you're working in the daytime, hopefully an evening session is a little bit more flexible for a lot of us. So the first session that we wanted to do was nursing. So I was a little bit biased because I am one of the EOP advisors and a bunch of students on my caseload are in the Metro Health Academy and a number of them are in nursing. And I'm always asking V and Daniella, our guest speakers, questions about nursing. So I thought let's invite them in so that you all can also ask questions. I also invited June Parra, who is the retention specialist for the College of Health and Social Sciences. She's also the go-to person I ask for anything pre-nursing related, so I'm so excited to have her here. We also have our EOP staff, so I have Kim here, I also have Noah here, and I also have Martley, who is a nursing student as well. So we have some people who will be moderating in the chat as we go through this conversation. So I'm so fortunate to have a dream team here. So if you guys have seen the schedule, the first part is we're going to have about a half-hour conversation with V and Daniella. Going to have them introduce themselves. I'm also going to ask them some preset questions. Then we will open up the floor to the AMA portion. I know many of you submitted questions and I'm so grateful that you did because it was so exciting to see how thoughtful your questions were and how wide-ranging, right? So we encourage you to ask your question in person or in the chat as well, but I also do have the ones that you submitted. So for the first part, we're going to be a little bit more personal. So the reason that we're having this AMA series is because for me, my background is in history and education. That is nowhere near nursing. So as much as I can help you figure out the academic portion, I wanted to make sure that we brought in people who were actually in the field, who had already been through nursing school, who are in nursing school right now, because they are the experts and they get to bring that praxis. So that was really important to me. And then I invited June. Whoops, hold on one second. My thing is freezing. Okay. And I wanted to invite June because we do need some experts here because I know so many of you will have very specific academic advising questions. So definitely hold on to those and bring them up in the AMA. So hopefully we'll be able to cover both the theory and the praxis questions. And again, a lot of you submitted questions about what is the difference between an ADN and a BSN, or like what happens if I want to apply to nursing school after I graduate. These are fantastic questions, so please hold on to them. We're super excited. We're gonna try to get through as many as we can. At 7 o'clock, we will kind of have a first end point. This is only because we wanna make sure that if our speakers have any other commitments that they need to go to, that they can feel free to leave and not feel pressure. Also, if any of you need to leave as well. But we will also open the floor at that point to questions that are a little bit more general. So if you have questions about SF State, if you have questions about Summer Bridge, if you have questions about EOP, please ask us then as well. We want to create this environment where we're creating a virtual community because we cannot be physically in person, but it's the summer. We have existing continuing students as well as incoming students, so this is a great opportunity for us to meet each other and for pre-nursing students to build community as well. So we're gonna get started. So first things first, here we go. Okay, here we go. I put up this particular information because I wanted you all to, if you're on your computer, to pull up this page. So open up a tab to put in this website, because we will be throwing around some terms and acronyms that can sound super confusing, right? So I wanted to make sure you knew not only where to find or how to find the nursing website, but also to see where you can find information about the specific programs. So we are going to focus on two of them. So the first one is the BSN program. Luckily, V was in the BSN program and Daniella was in the ADN-BSN. So what are all those terms? What do they mean? We're going to answer that. Okay. But definitely, please take a look at this page as we go along, because each program has its own differences, has its own requirements. And so for a lot of students that are interested in nursing, they ask us, which one is better for me? We're like, you have to do the research too, right? And I don't know the very specific differences because I never went through the program. So luckily we have experts here. Okay, so there are also functions at the side. So if, you know, I used to be a teacher, so I love feedback of any sort. So there are like thumbs up, thumbs down, clapping, like please use those. I'm super excited to see them all the time. Any feedback is welcome. Please, again, stay muted until the AMA section, just out of respect for our speakers. Okay. So first question. Okay. I'm so grateful to you both, for V and Daniella, for taking the time out of your busy schedules to share your nursing experiences with us. Before we dive in, however, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about yourselves. So this could be everything from your pronouns. So my name is Julia. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And then also your hometown, what you are doing now as a nurse or a nursing student, and maybe your favorite quarantine snack. V, do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. So my name is V. Full name is Vincent, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. I am a new graduate nurse. I am originally from the Bay Area, but I moved up to Southern Oregon, over in Medford, Oregon, where I'm currently working as a telemetry step-down nurse, which has recently been converted to a COVID-19 unit. And I've been working there just super fresh. So I've only been there for about close to 4 months now. And it's a lot of learning and relearning experiences for me. But everything has been great. I'm super blessed to coming into work and meet my patients and hear their stories. So it's been quite a lot of journey to be where I am today. So.
Thank you. And Daniella?
Hi, everybody. I'm Daniella. A lot of people call me Danny. Pronouns would be she, her, hers. I am originally from the Bay Area. I'm in Daly City right now. And I am going into my second year of nursing school through the ADN-BSN program. Work. I'm actually working part-time. I actually work at a popular coffee shop in San Francisco called Home Cafe, and I'm additionally just becoming a TA for the upcoming, or a supplemental instructor for the upcoming incoming first-year students at the College of San Mateo. So beyond that, I am a single mother of two, so I am quite busy at home. I have a son and daughter, so yeah.
Thank you. And her kids are the cutest, by the way, the absolute most adorable kids on the planet. So I
Thank
know that
you.
for some people, nursing is a lifelong dream, right? Or a calling. And sometimes it's because you meet someone or there's a specific moment that really inspired that dream. So the first question I wanted to ask is, what inspired you to become a nurse? How about Daniella, we start with you.
So ever since I was younger, I always knew I wanted to be a healer of sorts. It was just in my nature to care for people. And I guess in some ways I was lucky in that sense that I was always knowing I wanted to go in the direction of healing. I've considered becoming a doctor. However, the reason I chose nursing is because there's a lot more personal and it's patient-centered care. You know, you get a lot more quality time with your patients. I wasn't interested in the whole idea of just seeing a patient for just a couple minutes. I prescribe some medication and I leave and that's it. And that's not to say that being a doctor, that's all there is, but I know in nursing, and the patient is at the center of nursing. So that's why I chose to become a nurse.
Thank you. V?
So actually never really thought about becoming a nurse. It was sort of a very interesting shift in that career. Prior to going to nursing, I went to school at UC Davis. I was an English major, and I was hoping to get into journalism, right? So my first job right after school was working at a public radio station in Sacramento, and I was really, really driven into trying to get into like NPR and kind of work my way up there. But then around that time, I was with someone who had leukemia, and so that really kind of shifted my just whole life trajectory. And so I left the job to be her caretaker, and just being by her bedside for about 2 to 3 months really gave me a bit of a perspective of how the medical healthcare works. And after going through that, unfortunately she passed away, and I was really left in a position where I was like, okay, well, I can't go back to the radio station. I just dealt with this type of trauma. I need to find a different avenue to kind of make sense of what I just went through and try to find healing. And so I joined a nonprofit organization in the Bay Area called Asian American Donor Program, which focused on finding stem cells for a lot of marginalized communities, particularly for Asian American descent. And it was a job where they were looking for a videographer to meet up with patients at their bedside, at the hospital, and just film them and highlight their individuality, as well as highlighting the importance of finding stem cells for patients of color. And so working there for about 3 to 4 years, I've gotten to a point where I felt, okay, this is very fulfilling. It's like one of the coolest jobs I've ever been, but at the same time, it was very emotionally draining because here you are in the presence with people who are sick, but you can't really do anything from a clinical standpoint. And so I started thinking back, okay, I want to get into healthcare, but what exactly type of occupations that allow me to spend most of my time with patients? And just like Danny said, it's the nurses. They're right there by the patient's bedside. And I was like, hey, this is it. You know, this is actually probably what I was meant to do. So I went back to school and decided to register to become a nurse. So.
Thank you. So speaking of that, so many people get to nursing through so many different pathways, right? And a lot of times it's not a linear trajectory. So I was wondering if you could tell us about the specific track that you each chose. So for instance, V, if you can talk about the fact that you're an RN and a BSN, what those two programs are, why you decided to do both, for instance. And for Daniella, I would love if you can tell us about the ADN-BSN program. So I'd love to have V go first. I'm just gonna rotate back.
So it's very confusing. And I remember when I was looking into nursing program, I basically kind of look at my education at that point and see if it fits in some of the other programs I was looking into. So when I was applying to nursing school, I was a candidate for either the BSN and the ABSN. And the ABSN is just an accelerator program, but it requires that you have a pre-existing bachelor's degree. So the school that I applied to was a BSN program. So it is 2 years of prerequisite work. So prior to actually getting accepted to nursing school, you spend about 2+ years of doing your, you call it like your core fundamental science courses, like physiology, anatomy. You take some English courses, math. And then once you get accepted to the nursing program, it's a 2-year program in that nursing curriculum, right? So you start taking all your nursing classes. And once you graduate, right, you get your BSN, your Bachelor of Science of Nursing. And so once you have your BSN, that doesn't mean that you're a nurse yet. You just have your Bachelor of Science of Nursing. So now you got to apply to take your board exam, which is the NCLEX. And once you pass that NCLEX, then you can tag in your RN next to the BSN. So there's so many different routes, and I chose this specific route as opposed to the ABSN was mainly because of, here I am going into a profession that is like, you're working with like life and death situations. I didn't really feel confident of pushing myself in a 1-year track. I knew that I needed to expand to 2-year or plus, right? To really kind of understand and really develop that strong fundamental in the nursing foundation.
I really appreciated that you took the time to think about what you needed and the type of environment you wanted. Those are all really important factors when you are deciding what program you want to do. I also noticed that you went to nursing school out of state.
Yes.
Can you talk about that decision?
It was a plan B because, man, California is super competitive when you're applying.
Yeah.
So when I first applied to nursing school, this was back in, 2016. Wait, 2015. So when I applied to nursing school in California, I applied to all the schools in California, and I didn't get any interview. And you're in a state that's like very heavily compacted with a lot of students trying to thrive for the same school. And so I was basically left in a situation. I was like, okay, so I didn't get accepted for this year. I need to start having a plan B. And so the plan B was to apply out of state. And in 2016, I started pushing my applications to, I think I applied to Florida, Utah, Washington, D.C., and then Oregon. I've only got accepted to 3 out of those 4 places. So I got accepted to Portland, Washington, D.C., and Utah. And I chose Portland just mostly for personal reasons, is because it's closer to California. So I want to visit my family. It's only about a 7-hour drive, one hour flight down. The other 2 programs that I got accepted were an accelerated program, and I just felt like I wasn't ready to be in nursing school for just 1 year. So that's another reason why I chose Portland school, is because it's a 2-year track. There's definitely a lot of pros and cons along with that. I would say the pro is, when you're moving to a different state, it's easy for me, okay, so this is my own personal experience. It's easy for me to compartmentalize a new environment as like, this is a place for me to study. I'm not here to have fun. I'm here to just focus on my livelihood, right? Because knowing me, if I were to get accepted to a school in California, I'll get really distracted. Like, I want to hang out with all my friends. I want to do this and do that. And so that can have an effect on my education. So just kind of knowing about like how well you study and some of the barriers that might come along with it. That's one of the reasons why I chose out of state. The downside to that is that depending on what school you apply to, you might have to pay an out-of-state fee. The school that I applied to was a private school, but the thing about this private school is that they actually granted a lot of financial help for me, because I was working as a part-time job at the time, and I couldn't pay the full amount, right? And so I had to pull out a lot of loans. I had to apply to scholarships and just basically extra financial cushion to kind of help me along the way. So there's always pros and cons. You really just start to assess yourself to see what really works for you. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I chose out of state.
Thanks. That was also a common question that was asked in the Qualtrics survey. I think a lot of students are also thinking about like, what are the pros and cons between going out of state? For Danny, you stayed here in the Bay, where I'm also from. So can you tell us about your own experience about choosing the ADN-BSN program and your decision to stay here in the Bay?
Sure. So I think my decision to stay in the Bay was kind of more obvious because I have 2 kids, and you know, relocating not just myself but my children is a major decision. So my family's based here. I have more support here, and also with that being said, I definitely had to look at things in a financial aspect because regardless of kind of where you go, nursing programs pull some, you know, some amount of money. It's some large amount of money. Private schools definitely more so than others, and there is financial aid and everything. But the reason I chose the program I'm in now was my top choice. And the reason I chose the ADN-BSN program was because I knew if I first went the route to an ADN program, it would be more affordable fee-wise. And also I chose this specific program at the College of San Mateo because it has a direct bridge with San Francisco State University. And in the Bay Area, San Francisco State's nursing program is one of the top, right? It's one of the most impacted. So I did a lot of research on that, and it took me, prior to applying to nursing school, I got my bachelor's at SF State in psychology. So I was on a different route, but you know, fundamentally psychology, I think, is a basis for all career paths. So I did not regret my decision at all. I loved it, but I had to take all of my prerequisites still to apply to the program, because for the most part, there are a lot of the prerequisites are the same. However, there are certain classes, for example, chemistry, their requirements may be a little bit different, the type of chemistry that they're looking for. Although I'm thinking that they're starting to standardize more things. So my route going into the ADN-BSN program had to do with just how all the factors of from financial to getting into something that was going to give me a bachelor's degree in the end, because I believe in California now the minimum requirement is going to be having a bachelor.
Yes. Yeah. And can you tell me a little bit about what exactly an ADN-BSN program is? Because we know that a BSN, it's roughly 2 years in that nursing program, and you graduate with the BSN. So what exactly is ADN-BSN?
So an ADN, so that's the Associate of Science degree in nursing, and that is a 2-year program through a community college system. And it's, from what I understand from other people who have taken or who have done their ADNs, there is a lot more clinical focus in the ADN programs, just because compared to a bachelor's program, there's a lot more classes that you need to take. Research writing is prominent. So for the ADN, it's a 2-year program. For the ADN-BSN program through San Francisco State with College of San Mateo and City College, which Martley, I believe, is in. It's a 2.5-year program. Now, some ADN-BSN programs, from what I understand, some of them are 3 years long. So what's really nice about the program with SF State is that it, I believe, is 1 semester shorter. So after you finish your ADN portion, which is the first 2 years, you go on to take your license exam this summer that you finish your 2-year program, and then you do 1 more semester and you get your bachelor's degree. Yeah.
So we're very lucky to have Danny, who is going through the ADN-BSN program through College of San Mateo, and Martley through the CCSF to SF State. So if you have questions for either of those programs, please ask them. Okay, so some of the biggest obstacles that our EOP pre-nursing students face are the lack of academic resources and guidance, as well as financial support, right? So many of our students are also working part-time or full-time caregivers for their family members, and now having to complete their prereqs completely online. So a lot of different factors, right? What was your biggest challenge as you navigated nursing school, and how did you find the support that you needed? Danny, do you want to go first?
I feel very fortunate and grateful for having such a strong support system around me to help me through the whole process of nursing school, especially my parents, and with the kids. They definitely have helped me. I'm in school with other mothers and fathers where childcare is really it's really a problem. I mean, especially with the pandemic going on, it was even harder. So I was very fortunate in the sense that I did have resources available to me with family to help me. So having children, going to nursing school is hard, but also financially, I think it's very important and to connect with your resources at school, connect with your instructors, nursing instructors who especially know potential scholarships or ways of whether it's financial or if you need food or if you need other type of support. Communication and not being afraid to go seek that help is, I think, very fundamental in being able to get access to the many resources that are available. So honestly, that's something I learned just within the past year. I applied to scholarships and luckily I was granted 3 different scholarships, and that was all because I spoke to my nursing instructors. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known anything at all. So I think going out there and not being afraid to just ask questions is important.
That's also something that we try to tell our students a lot, is a huge lesson we want students to take away when they graduate from SF State is this ability to advocate for yourself. So thank you for sharing. V, same question to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to applaud to all the current pre-nursing students and nursing students who are really trying to work during this whole COVID thing. It's crazy. I can't imagine like surviving as a student during this time where everything is just like 75 to 100% time, all like cyber education, right? So
including labs.
Including labs. I'm just like, how are you doing it? So definitely applaud yourself for doing that. Support system, man. Okay, so when I moved to Portland, Oregon, it was a huge adjustment period for me. And primarily it's because I didn't really know anybody out there. And here I was in an environment that is predominantly white. And so eventually that kind of like really sinks into my psyche, right? So I was really stuck in a place where I needed to be vulnerable and reach out to my community, right? I had to look for my community, first of all, and look up for my resources too as well. So during the first semester of nursing school, you know, my whole life was just like grind, study, right? But then I got to a point where I was really mentally fatigued because I start to feel like I was losing myself in a sense of like, this is not just who I am. I'm not just a student. I have other things that I like, things that I want to incorporate for self-care, stuff like that. So I would say, you know, it's important that you are striving to do your best against a nursing program, to be in a nursing program, but also really ask yourself, you know, you're more than those things, right? So find time to self-care with yourself, right? For me, it was looking for a community that had a lot of similar interests. So me, I really like photography and art and, you know, working about social justice and issues of that. I think that really helps to cater and make me a lot more stronger to kind of integrate these different elements, become a stronger nurse, to be a stronger individual. Also, really utilize your school resources in terms of finance. If you see any scholarships that's out there, or if you can afford a loan, really start to look into those things, because nursing school is a huge and expensive investment. So definitely be very vigilant about that and do everything you can to schedule an appointment with your counselor and kind of like look down the checklist, like, am I qualified for this? Because everyone is striving for the same thing too. So self-advocate for yourself, be vulnerable, and you're going to open a lot of windows to opportunities.
I also want to do a plug for V because V makes these awesome videos about his nursing experience. So we will add that into the chat a little bit later, but check them out. Okay, so we've seen the numbers. We've seen the numbers at SF State in the fall, around 600 students apply and only about 20 get in. And in the spring, about 600 students apply and only about 40 get in, like give or take. So how do you practice mental resilience and self-care in what is arguably the most impacted and rigorous major there is? V, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, mental resilience.
I know. I wanted to be very intentional with the wording, right?
Yeah. There was a lot of mental resilience and a lot of picking myself up. So, when you, and this also applied to like being a new grad nurse too, when you're applying to multiple jobs and you couldn't get in. But in the context of applying to nursing school, so when I applied to every single school in California and didn't get in, you really start doubting yourself, like, am I meant for this, right? Like, am I missing something? Do I not have all the requirements I need to become, this future nurse, right?
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome, all that wonderful stuff, right? I would say, if you don't get in the first time, hey, it's okay. Your chapter doesn't end there, right? Yeah. It's just an opportunity for you to understand that, you try everything you can, but this doesn't work, right? So really start to reevaluate yourself, because so much about nursing is relearning, reassessment, right? Flexibility, right? Making the best out of your situation, utilizing your resources, things of that sort. So I knew that, I really wanted to become a nurse. And just because I didn't get accepted during the first try, hey, let's wait it out. Let's start assessing, okay, how much money do I have left? Do I need to pick up a part-time job? Yeah, I probably do. So I worked as a barista as well and try to make ends meet and try to pay for those application fees and all that sort. And then really start thinking in the bigger picture. If I can't work in my home state, it's okay. It's temporary, right? Nursing school is always going to be there. It's not leaving, right? So I need to squeeze out as much time and optimize my moment as much as possible. So in the whole imposter syndrome, I do get that from time. And I think really what helps me to see past that is really kind of start changing your mindset. I think when you have imposter syndrome, sometimes your brain kind of insinuates that you're already great at something. And when you fail at something, then you start to have this imposter syndrome. I would challenge everyone that, you are all like students of learners, right? You're always constantly learning, no matter how old you are, how much experience you have at a job, there's always something to learn about. So for me, that what helps me to kind of wrestle with this whole imposter syndrome, because if I dwell on that too much, it's really going to take a toll on my spirit, and it's going to prevent me from reaching something really great in the future.
Danny?
First of all, V, that was beautiful. So honestly, even just the process of applying to nursing school and waiting brings so much anxiety. I couldn't sleep for, I want to say, the 3 or 4 months, waiting to hear back, already being rejected, waiting for another rejection letter. And, for my program, I was waitlisted. This was the only program I was waitlisted on. I had no idea what was going to happen. I just had to be patient. And so in that time, I would check my email at 3 a.m, guys. Who's gonna email me an acceptance letter at 3 a.m? But I'm over there waiting to see if I got an acceptance letter. And I realized that I needed to shift my focus and come back to the things that really bring me peace of mind. And for me, I meditate. I like to be in nature. So going back, or bringing my attention back to my own reality and what's really going on with me in the present moment was definitely helpful. And during school, and I have another year and a half left, but during school, I've always been the type of person who withdraws when I am trying to figure something out. When I'm under stress, I want to figure it all out on my own because I feel like I'm a burden to somebody. I don't want to bother this person. My classmates have their own nursing load that they have to deal with. So I'm over here, I'm in my own little bubble, and it's just, you know, I'm shrinking.
Suffering in
shrinking
silence.
more. And yeah, exactly. And, you know, I realized a few months ago, I was doing this. I withdrew. I deactivated all my social media, and my peers around me were concerned. And in my mind, no one's concerned. But having people ask me if I was okay, I realized that I really had to break out of that idea of not bothering, or, you know, that I'm bothering people, that no one wants to help me, because in a way, it's also not fair to the people around you who are concerned, because then it just kind of creates this whole tornado of everyone's worried about, you know, everyone's worried and concerned. So definitely confide in your family, confide in your friends, and most importantly, when you're in nursing school, confide in your classmates, because you are going through the same experience together. You might be studying in different ways, you might have different things going on at home, but in that moment, and that's what's so special about nursing school, it is a challenge, but the relationships you make and just the journey to get there, it's very special in its own accord. So yeah.
Thank you, Mo. So we have two more questions. So first of all, I wanted to address the moment that we're in, right? So we are currently in the midst of both a health and social pandemic. Black lives in particular have been disproportionately impacted by COVID-19, and we are finally seeing more and more attention on the health disparities in the Black community. How have these last few months shaped how you see yourself and also your responsibility as a nurse? V, do you want to go first?
Yeah, it's a very, very, very tough question. It's something that has really been on my mind lately, and it's a lot of relearning and then reassessing and then checking my biases, right? And, you know, as nurses, you're going to be working with a lot of marginalized communities. And I was having this conversation with someone about the things that I've done recently. Is like I've been just kind of going back to the literature, and you know, you see a lot of when they're talking about a specific group of people. So when they're saying like, oh, Black folks are at high risk for like hypertension or health disparity or comorbidity, but they don't really kind of go into the specifics. They say like, oh, it's mostly a genetic issue, right? And so I felt like there needs to be a lot of restructuring at its very core when it comes to these type of articles, is that it's not really looking at from a very systemic racism, right? You know, they're not looking at a long list of history of different demographics being redlining, you know, you're having separations of different cities and of that sort. And in the midst of COVID-19, not a lot of these inner city places have enough COVID testings, right? So people are getting sick. So, you know, you start to, as a nurse, you start to asking yourself, are my patients, like, are the health resources being equally allocated, right? And the answer, it's not. And it's very, very frustrated, especially when you're working in a healthcare system that is not perfect. And you strive each time when you have a conversation with your coworkers or with your managers or even with your, you know, your counselor or somebody who you seek as a mentor, you know, start having these conversations about like, what can I do to better my community? And you know, for me, it's just having these conversations, right? Keep that conversation going, keep the momentum going, constant learning, constant reassessing yourself, because we still have a long way to go. I don't have the answers to all these things because I'm still learning. But my advice is really start to listen. That's the most important thing as a nurse, is that don't be fast to speak. Just listen. Listen and do your own research and then advocate, so that, you know, more people can get the necessary help that they need. So,
Danny?
So I think this is such an important discussion, and I'm so happy that we're able to talk about this and bring this up, because as V was saying, you know, the Black population, marginalized communities are very disproportionately higher. They're much more affected Even with COVID, I mean, there are studies that are showing just with COVID alone, these marginalized communities are more affected by all of this. And we do need to look into why this is occurring, and not so much, as V was saying also, it's just genetics. It's just, there is a long-standing history of why these things are occurring. And I think for me, myself, as a student, I believe that it's my responsibility. I'm in a research class this summer. It's my responsibility to take the resources I have and what I'm actively doing in my studies and take time to research into these very important matters. So also using those resources to benefit these communities as well. If you're able to have discussions with these populations and use your platform to be able to raise awareness to them while decentering yourself, and at the same time, I think it's very important that we do that right now. And learning about the core of why all of these things are occurring in our community. There's so much I have to say. I'm very passionate about this. Honestly, every day I take time to read, listen, whatever I can do to learn and unlearn. And being in a profession like nursing, your biases, your criticisms, they are completely set aside when you're at the bedside, when you walk into the hospital. But it shouldn't just stop there. It shouldn't just, you walk into the hospital door and you say, okay, well, those are gone. But when you step out, they come back. Within your home, with your family, I mean, we need to address these things. And I think it is uncomfortable, but I think the more we talk about it, we break the idea that these conversations are uncomfortable, and we empower one another by addressing these things. So, yeah.
Thank you. So in the interest of time, I do want to get us started with the AMA. Thank you so much to both V and Daniella for sharing their experiences. So for the AMA, if anyone has a question they want to ask to our speakers, you can unmute yourself and ask. I'm also going to invite June. So again, June is the retention specialist for the College of Health and Social Sciences. She's also one of the advisors who leads the pre-nursing workshops. And so if y'all have any questions, please either ask them in the chat or unmute yourself and you can ask them directly.
Julia, we have one question from India Mitchell.
Okay.
She was asking, do you have any study strategies for the NCLEX?
Study strategies. How did I study? I'm trying to erase that out of my mind.
He's like, I didn't study, I just took the test.
I was like, so when I was in nursing school, we have to take Kaplan questions, right? So depending on what nursing school you go to, they may or may not provide you Kaplan practice questions. It was actually a requirement to just take like 30 practice Kaplan questions like once every other week, so that we're always constantly thinking about how to take these questions, because so much of NCLEX is really learning about how to learn how to take the test. Honestly, if you were to ask me—
Most standardized tests, right?
You really learn how to become a nurse by taking the NCLEX. They ask questions, I'm like, did we even cover this? They really want to see if you can learn how to take these questions. So a lot of it's like prioritization, what's the best answer, all that hallmark when you're in nursing school and you're taking these questions. So definitely practice a lot of test questions for sure. I'll kind of give you a breakdown of how I study. So I spent about maybe 2 months of just reviewing everything based on body system, right? So I'll spend maybe a solid week or a week and a half on the brain, and then work my way down to the cardiac, to respiratory, to the GI, all the way down from head to toe. And then I'll start looking at like psychiatric, and then my favorite, OBGYN. It's actually one of the hardest things for me is learning about just women health, because there's just so much going on that I haven't quite understood. I have no idea, because the thing about NCLEX is that whatever you're weak at, they'll throw those questions even more at you. So definitely kind of spent 1 or 2 months studying, or whichever you feel comfortable, and then start practicing taking those questions. I use Kaplan. I also use something called UWorld, which is a little bit more expensive, but UWorld, they provide outstanding rationale with a lot of pictures. So if you're a visual learner, definitely invest in UWorld. I think it's like $100 for a month. Whereas Kaplan, I think it's $100 for 6 months. So, choose your poison.
And timing, very important.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and timing. About a week into your test date, I would take like a mock exam, like really start building that endurance. So sit there for 4 hours taking the tests, make sure that you close the door, you turn off your phone, everything. Treat it as if you're taking the exam. So start to really build that confidence. YouTube videos is another great source that I use to watch, Khan's Academy, things of that sort. So, yeah.
So on the screen right now, these are the prereqs. So for the students out there who are either declared or not declared or just curious about nursing, these are all the classes you would want to take in your first few years in order to apply to any of the programs. So June, I think one of the questions is a little bit geared more toward you. What is the general education subjects or courses in SFSU nursing? Jean, I'm not sure if your question is more toward when you're actually in the nursing program or about the prereqs, but could you talk a little bit about the prereqs, June?
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is June. I am the retention specialist for the College of Health and Social Science. So I mainly work with pre-nursing students. And so definitely I have some few knowledge to share with you all. So we have 8 courses that we require our students to be eligible to apply to the nursing program. And some of these courses are met in major with your GE requirements. For example, Chem 101 and 102, it would automatically fulfill your B1. English 114, A2, Math 124, B4, Com 150, A1. Okay, so Phil 110, the nursing website says Phil 110, but any A3 will do. So if you choose HSS 110, Latino Studies, Critical Thinking, that's totally fine. So know that that's okay. And then Bio 210 and 211, that would, with the Bio 210 and then completing Bio 212, that's a met and major for your B2. Note that you have to complete Bio 210, 211, Chem 101, and 102 before you're eligible to take the Bio 212 and 213. And you must complete Bio 212 and 213 in order to be eligible for Bio 220. In the chat, let me send you guys the pre-nursing flyer that I always utilize and give to my pre-nursing students. So let me do that right now.
So as June was mentioning, there are some classes that are prereqs to other classes. So please do not just think that you can take the classes in this order.
Yeah.
So luckily we have roadmaps that are available in the bulletin that can give you a breakdown of what is recommended each semester. I also highly encourage you to make an appointment to see June.
Yes.
There are also pre-nursing workshops. So we will include that contact information in a later slide, but just beware, like June is the best person to talk to for all this stuff.
I just want to include some few more information, and I did also put my email address in the chat. So please do not hesitate to email me to make an appointment. I'm available via Zoom. And as always, I always recommend students, no matter what classes you're planning to take, read the prereqs, because sometimes the system will allow you to enroll and the professor will check if you've completed the prereq, and if you haven't, then that means they will drop you. So it's a waste of your time, right? So definitely check the prereqs and identify if you're eligible to take the course. So these are the courses. I just want to clarify that if it says or, you only need to take one. However, Bio 328 and the other one is not there.
Listed.
Yeah, it's not listed, but that's okay. Bio 328 is intended for students that is in bio major, but pre-nursing is their backup plan. So you might not be able to take that if you're not in the bio major, okay? And these are the classes that you must complete with a C or better.
Not a C minus.
However, we have a lot of applicants. I always encourage students, pursue your dream. Do not give up. I've had my own struggles, and I can attest that not giving up you will achieve that dream of yours. So please do not give up. Keep pushing. But we have to be also realistic with how impacted the nursing program is, especially at SF State. And like V said, I totally agree. He had a backup plan, and I always have a backup plan just in case, right? And also, this is going to be another topic. Sorry, I know that I go into more details.
Go for it.
But definitely, if you want to have that conversation with me, I'm here for you guys, always. Going back to the classes, C or better, however, the minimum of GPA that they're asking is 3.0. But internal knowledge, because I have a relationship with the School of Nursing, in order to be competitive against other applicants, they're looking about 3.9, so almost 4.0. Okay, and they're only looking, they're only looking within this 8 courses. So if you, let's say, got a C or a D in area D1, that doesn't matter, because they're only looking for the grades that you got within this 8 courses. Okay, and it's not just the courses that they're looking, they're also looking at your TEAS exam as well as your experience. The experience is recommended, it's not required. Know that if you take the CNA certification, that would replace the experience category part of the eligibility for nursing. So I know I went more than what is GE requirements, but that's just a summary of what we are asking for our pre-nursing students. There are more, but I think I'm gonna stop there.
Can I also ask you about the TEAS exam, what the average score is for the TEAS exam? Because it does say 78 here. But what about at SF State? What do you know?
Yes, so it's 78 that they're asking, but really they're looking about 90-95% to be competitive. To be eligible, you just need 78 or higher.
So for V and Daniella, how did you both study for the TEAS exam, and what resources did you use? Was it similar to the NCLEX ones? Yeah. Any insight would be helpful here.
What? Surprisingly, I only used one book for the TEAS, and I will be very honest with all of you. I did not take the TEAS that serious because I thought of it more as an SAT. I thought it was going to be just like the SAT, which in some sense it was. And I thought, okay, well, whatever I know, I know. So I'm not giving that advice, but I studied for just maybe a month and a half before I took my TEAS exam, and I used one book, and it was the Mometrics ATI TEAS book. And if you were able to get access to that book, honestly, everything that was in that book was basically on my exam. I mean, the topics are exactly what was covered. So I don't know if I was just, it just aligned in that sense. I definitely recommend studying maybe 2-3 months before your TEAS to be competitive for SF State's program, considering the 90 to 95. Definitely, I believe in all of you. It's totally possible for you to get that. It sounds really high, but it's very possible. And honestly, I was under 90. I was under 90% for the T's, and I am where I am. So don't give up, and don't be swayed by this idea that SF State is a great program, but it's not the only program out there.
Mhm.
And don't think that if you have a C or a B minus, or you get an 80 on the T's, that you are not capable of getting accepted into a nursing program, because that is not the case at all. You are so capable. It's so possible. So don't give up on yourself.
Ariana asked a question. She asked, if you don't mind answering, what % did you get on your TEAS exam, which you mentioned? What subject was the hardest, and what was your overall GPA while applying to the nursing program?
Let's see. So I don't remember my score exactly, but I would say it's like in the high 80s. And 100% agree with Danny. Like I think I studied about a month to a month and a half, and I just used that same book too, Romantics. I had to look this up just in case if people wanted, like if people couldn't afford the book and they wanted like more free resources. I looked up on YouTube, and there's somebody by the name of Nurse Chung, Cheung, and she has like a very extensive T review series. She covers from like, reading comprehension, physio, anatomy, all that jazz, right? The hardest one for me, believe it or not, as an English major, it was the reading comprehension. So
Me
that was
too.
really hard for me because, I just get so zoned out when I'm just like reading so much text. And it's not that, I'm not capable of, it's just like, it was a very boring test. But the physio and the anatomy, those were my favorite part, because those are things that you would carry into your nursing program. So my score was like an 80, 86, something like that. There's also apps that you can use called the T Mastery. So if you want to just have it on your phone, you bring it with you, if you're in the car or you're on the bus, you can just take it, do a lot of practice questions, and you'll be set. So I'm very confident that each and every one of you would have a much better score than I did. So kudos.
So for some of you, if you don't know, we will be coming out with the resource guide, hopefully on Monday, where we will take a lot of the information that we went over today, the resources that they've been talking about, and put it onto a document for you, including some of the handouts that June is providing. And we also found out there are a lot of Facebook groups that offer a lot of TEAS exam support, and there's actually a pre-nursing Facebook group. So just throwing that out there. I will include all that information in the resource guide as well.
I just want to include Julia. I have
Mhm.
2 more things to include about the
Please.
TEAS. With V, all my students that have gone through the TEAS exam, they told me that the most common questions in the test was the physiology and anatomy. So definitely focus on those. That is the Bio 210 and 211 and the Bio 220. So those are the physio and the anatomy.
Do you all recommend that they take the TEAS exam after they have completed those classes?
That's the recommendation from the School of Nursing. But hearing from V and Danny, like the resources, I'm gonna like get those resources and start giving it to my students.
Yeah, we're taking notes here.
Yeah, and I agree with Danny that there's multiple pathways. One of my workshops that I do every semester is pathways to nursing, because there's the ADN-BSN, there's the accelerated ADN-BSN, there's even the master's program. So definitely there's other pathways. Again, I know like sometimes I feel like I'm being strict or like, very stern about like the requirements, but I always encourage students to, don't give up, but I want them to be informed about the requirement that we have, because it's better to be knowledgeable and prepare than not. So definitely I'm here for you guys. And there's a student saying that, can I see you even though I'm not a pre-nursing student? Of course, I always see students that are not in the health and social science, and we talk about pre-nursing requirements or just pathways in generals, because there's just no one pathway for nursing. There's multiple pathways, and one of the backup plan that we create, it's not backup plan for other major, but also backup plan for other pathway to nursing.
So please, again, make an appointment to see June, especially if you know that you want to do pre-nursing, but she's actually part of the College of Health and Social Sciences. Like, they do everything like health related. So go see them. Again, there's lots of workshops. I also wanted to show you guys that they recently had a panel on nursing programs at SF State. So of all the nursing programs available, both undergrad and master's programs, they had a representative come and they just chatted like what we're doing right now. So I highly recommend that you take a look at this video as well if you're curious about the different programs that SF State offers. Okay, what is your best advice for a pre-nursing student working a part-time job? How should I manage my academics? V or Danny?
Dan, you want to go first?
Sure. It is challenging as a pre-nursing student and as a nursing student. I mean, the prerequisites for nursing school are not easy. They require a lot of your time. And I think it comes down to an important conversation with yourself of what you want to choose. And money is very important. We need to be able to survive. We need to be able to put food on the table and pay our bills. But there's also an amount that we have to, or you have to take a moment and step back and say, what can I make this sacrifice right now to withdraw from working a little bit or reducing my hours so I can focus on school? And there is a right time for everything. If you really need to work right now and that is your main focus, then maybe wait to hold off on your prerequisites or your academics at another time so you can really invest, and especially with prerequisites, do the best you can, because that is, unfortunately, it is one of the main determinants of you getting into school if you do well in those courses. Because if you get a D or an F, they're going to see that on your record and you can't retake that, or you will get points taken off for that. So it's just something to keep in mind. Whatever is best for you at any given moment, take that direction.
I agree. I think when I was working a lot of hours and on top of taking classes, it really did have an effect on my grades, and it kind of scarred me along the way in a sense that I had to retake the class, right? I had to find different ways to kind of retake it again without causing so much collateral damage in my GPA. So, always be very realistic. Like, if you are really crunching for money, try to find a way that can kind of meet halfway. If you can be a part-time student, then do that. I think for me, I was a part-time student. I wasn't, taking classes at SF State. I was taking classes at a community college. And so it allows me to have that opportunity to meet my finance goals and at the same time also meet my prerequisite classes. Yes, it did took me a very long time. I think it took me so once I graduated from UC Davis and did all my prereqs for nursing school, it took me about close to 4 years. And it's just because I didn't have finance to sacrifice to take the full load in one semester. And I know it can be very challenging depending on which school that you're applying to. They might have different prerequisites, but I just had to be very realistic of my goals and be very smart about that. And budgeting. I ate a lot of instant ramen during those nights when I like to just like taking tests. And it's not the fun, but I know I gotta do what I gotta do to get myself closer to nursing school. So just be very realistic of your goals, and you'll be amazed of how far you can get into it.
So it is a little bit past 7, so if anyone needs to leave, please feel free to leave. We also want to open the floor to any questions that are also more about SF State or EOP, Summer Bridge, anything like that. But we do have a bunch of other questions. So if you can stay, please do, and we will try to get through as many of them as possible. If June can stay for a little bit, is that okay, June?
Oh, of course.
Okay. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the CNA program and what it is, because I think a lot of students have been asking about it, but aren't sure what exactly it entails. Do you happen to know?
I mean, we don't have CNA program in at SF State. So to be honest, what I know about CNA is just from other students saying that they went on, like, research it, and some community college have it, and it's
And high schools.
And high schools, and it's like 2 weeks program or 1 month, and they do the certification and they're done with it. So and right now, because of COVID-19, I know that there's a struggle to get into the program, because I know some of my few students try to get into the program, or at least explore to get into the program. And because they need that face-to-face instructions, and it's tough right now for that field. But yeah, that's tough because that's not my specialization. And that's the only thing that I've heard from my other students.
Thank you. And is there a better semester to apply for their nursing program? Someone asked, is there one program that has a higher acceptance rate?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, about 20 students gets in the fall, and 40 gets in the spring, and it depends, right? The numbers varies each semester, but the average applicants that we get is about 200 to 600 students. So it is very competitive, but with the classes, the TEAS exam, and then also the experience, right? So if you have an experience, your supervisor will write you a verification letter. Those about 3 requirements combined to apply to the program. With that, they also give an interview for the top applicants, right? So with that interview, it's really looking into like, what are you really passionate about going to nursing and so forth. And it's a group interview. So it's about 4 or 5 students, 2 questions each, and there's about 3 panelists. So with that layers, there's not really a good answer. Oh, apply in the fall, apply in the spring. Not really. My advice is, take the load that you can each semester, right? Because I've seen students taking 15, 19 units, and they're taking 2 science courses, and it's too overwhelming, right? So know the load that you're taking each semester, because you have to incorporate self-care. It's so important, because nursing classes is not easy, right? It's a hard work, and with the hard work, you need to balance life and school and work. So focus on what you need to do. Utilize your resources, utilize your advisors for information, and it's not a race. It's, if you get done before the fall admission, then that's when you apply, or spring admission, that's when you apply. Know that it's always a year in advance. The flyer that I provided for you guys, it has the deadline for each. For example, for spring, let me pull it up so I have the accurate deadline here with me. So looking at the flyer, for our spring admission, you have a window between August 23rd to September 17th, okay? So, for example, if you're done with everything that is they're asking for you to do, then you must submit all of the requirements at nursingcast.org by September 17 to apply for spring 2021 admission if you're done by spring 2020. Okay, now let me give you an example just to clarify. If you're done with everything, let's say this fall 2020, you have till January 15 to send all your courses or the requirements at nursingcast.org to apply for fall 2021, right? It's always a year in advance. So some of my students, they'll be done with the pre-nursing requirements and all their GEs. And that's when advisors comes in and we have a conversation of what will happen in between of you applying and waiting for you to get into the nursing program.
Also a great time for those backup majors.
Yes.
So
and
hopefully we do encourage
pathways.
every nursing student,
Yeah,
to consider a backup major.
Yeah. So there's not really like a good answer for that. It just really depends of when you get done with your requirements.
For V, Daisy asks, since you went to school out of state, did you have to take extra testing or training to get a job in California?
I didn't get a job in California. Yeah, so let's say if I were to get a job in California from going to school out of state, you don't have to take any extra testing. You just take the NCLEX and that's it. You can take it in any state that you want. So I took my NCLEX in Oregon. The only difference that you have to do is that you have to transfer your license to California, or you can endorse your license to California. So I think I pay close to $300 to have an active license in California. So I actually have an active license in California and in Oregon. And that's it. That's really what it is. You don't have to take any extra training or anything of that sort. Now, to put it that way, I did had to take some classes to just be a stronger candidate when it comes to applying for jobs. And, that's taking your ACLS. So that's, a different type of basic life support. It's just more for acute training when you're working in the hospital. So I would highly advise for people who are about to graduate nursing school and apply to jobs is that try to make yourself as much marketable as possible. A lot of hospitals love to invest in new graduate nurses who are investing in their education. So depending on where you want to work, if you want to work in the hospital, definitely look to those different types of educations like your ACLS. If you want to work with pediatrics, there's something called PALS, which is a basic life support for kids. So you have a huge array of different educations out there. It really comes down to what type of nursing that you want to do. So yeah, that would be my advice. So you don't have to take any mandatory training, but it doesn't hurt to do so.
June, Amanda asks, I wanted to know if for the Chem prereq, does it specifically need to be Chem 101 or 102, or could it be another class?
It has to be Chem 101 and 102. Like, for example, I had a student that took Chem 100 or Chem 115, and unfortunately, that's not the course that the School of Nursing is asking for students. However, yeah, there's an or sometimes here. You'll see here on the pre-nursing flyer. Again, for those or the Bio 612 and Bio 328, most likely those are reserved for bio students that is intending for pre-nursing as a backup plan. Because when you look at the description on the class schedule, it would say reserved for bio major. But of course, if you truly want to get in, I always encourage students to talk to the professors. They are the ones who can give you guys the codes and
advocate for yourself.
Yeah, yeah. And so for physiology and anatomy, sometimes some of my students, they take the anatomy course, equivalent course at community college because they don't require physiology as the prereq. I know for a fact, CCSF, they don't require any prereqs for their anatomy equivalent course. And so I meet with my students and utilize assist.org just to make sure that whatever they're taking in a community college will satisfy that specific requirement for our pre-nursing recs requirements, yeah.
For Daniella and June, do you have any information about local scholarship programs or maybe SF state scholarships that can help toward nursing?
The scholarships that I applied to first, this is through College of San Mateo, but I do know that San Francisco State also has scholarships as well. There is a general application period, I believe, and luckily through the system I was in, through my general application, I could just apply directly to specific scholarships. So that was through the school, and that was told to me by our nursing advisor. And also we get information on outside scholarships, let's say from hospitals or various state agencies that we can apply to and as students. So that's also very helpful.
I just included a link in the chat box that has the scholarship that you can get through our scholarship. There's a lot, just, just apply, because sometimes these scholarships are not being used because no one is applying to the scholarship or to the program. So check out some of these scholarships, and I encourage you to just apply.
So Elena asks, would volunteering at a hospital while taking classes be a good investment so that I could gain real world experience while getting the educational experience? Again, a lot of things are a little bit more complicated now with COVID, but what do you all think?
Absolutely, yes. If you have the capacity to do so. I didn't volunteer at a hospital prior to getting to nursing school. I was working at a nonprofit organization that was focusing more on public health. So I was able to use that to kind of add into my resume when I applied to nursing school. But absolutely, yes, if you have the capacity to do your prerequisite and maybe spend some time during the weekend to do some volunteer, you're not hurting. You're making yourself let people know that you're really invested in being part of, in medicine, being part of health. Because, a lot of people, when they're looking at your applications, they're not just focusing on your classes, right? So much of nursing is like thinking the big picture, and you really want to kind of sell yourself. Like, how are you packaging yourself? So does that mean you're going to have to do some volunteer? Does that mean that if you have the capacity to work as a CNA or maybe a medical scribe, there's so many different avenues that you can do outside of just taking classes to get into nursing school to demonstrate that you're ambitious about really trying to get to one of the best programs out there.
I also think it's important because then you get to see the different fields, right, and different ways that you can be a part of the health field. It's also important that a lot of people are always thinking about what they like and what spaces they want to be in. You also want to think about what spaces you probably don't want to be in. So that's equally important.
I think to add on to what Julia said too, I think a lot of people going into the nursing major and profession, that volunteer experience is vital to see if you really want to pursue this path.
Okay, so can you get into the nursing field without a nursing degree?
Can you get into a nursing field without a nursing degree? Yes and no. So you can do like nursing related things. So if you don't want to be a nurse, but you want to kind of get your hands on into doing like direct patient care, you can be a certified nursing assistant. But you don't have the title as a nurse because nurses have their own scope of practice, including what some of the stuff that the CNA does, which is providing patient care, cleaning the patient, taking their vital signs. So there's a lot of overlapping things. But if you want to perform within the scope of practice as a nurse, then you have to go through the trajectory of pre-nursing prerequisites, nursing school, and then apply it to get into a nursing profession.
Someone also asked, what was the biggest obstacle you faced in nursing school? I guess for V or Daniella.
I think the biggest obstacle, I mean, it's truly, it's having to almost deal with yourself on a daily basis, and knowing that even in the moments where you really want to give up, you have to find that light in you to keep going. I mean, and what from what I gather from my year in nursing school is just you're constantly reevaluating yourself. And I think, you know, relating that to current events, it's just reevaluating your own biases and everything that you've learned in the past and where you are learning now, and just kind of being gentle with yourself and patient with yourself. I think that's a huge thing in nursing school, because for me, I had this idea, especially I'm going to get all A's, and that was not the case. And I did well in my prerequisites. And when I got to, I thought I was ready, but seeing that not happening, and you're constantly, if that's all you're focusing on, you have to really, kind of back off of that idea and realize you are doing your best. As long as you are doing your very personal best, and you know that, then
that's all you can do.
Yeah, exactly.
100%. Nursing school was the hardest thing I've ever done in life. I've gotten beaten up so much, and I'm like waking up like, do I still want to do this? I mean, personal experience was I actually almost fell out of nursing school, believe it or not. It was like during second semester, and it was pharmacology and pathophysio. It was one of the hardest classes that I ever take. And there's just so many medication that I got to a point where like I wasn't understanding. And so when I had to repeat that semester, it was just that one class. So I had to pay the full tuition. And, I wake up every day, I'm like, is this going to be it? Is this going to be it? Is it like, am I going to fail out of this program again? So there was a lot of just taking things very close to the heart, and a lot of self-doubt. So I had to really invest in my self-care and seek my support system to make sure that I am doing the right thing, and I have the resilience to keep on going. And also, when you're presented with those opportunities when you're failing, it's a learning moment. So I really learned things that didn't work and things that did work. And so I kind of restructure the way that I study so that I don't set myself up for failure in the future. And it's something that I incorporate even working as a nurse, right? Is to not take things personally. Things happened beyond our control, and that's okay. It's just more about how you respond to these situations, and be very flexible, and to be able to be on your feet, and just be fluid each time.
Thank you. So last question of the night, I'm going to direct this one to June. After having completed your prereqs, and I'm guessing also as well the TEAS exam here, how long do you have before they expire? I guess how long do you have after they expire for you to be able to apply to the nursing program? I guess, is there an expiration date to either the prereqs or the TEAS exam before you'd have to retake them?
Not that I know of. I mean, and it depends on which program. So if you're just talking about SF State, I haven't heard that there's an expiration. I mean, that's a good question, because no one has asked me that before. I can definitely clarify with the School of Nursing if they truly have that timeline that, I completed it in fall 2020. How long do I have before I have to retake the course? That's a good question. Definitely, I'll clarify with the School of Nursing and email Julia for that verification that there's no deadline for that. And I can only speak for our program, because I know each other nursing program, they have other requirements. So and also for the TEAS exam, sorry, I forgot to mention, you have 3 times to take it. Again, this is for our program. Other program doesn't even require the TEAS exam, but just know that you are allowed 3 times.
And also, because of COVID-19, there have been requirements that are either waived or are a little bit more flexible. So again, make sure you do your research Things are constantly changing.
Yeah. And I just want to say that nursing program at SF State is very competitive and impacted, but I'm your ally, and there's others, SRC advisors too, that helps our pre-nursing students all the time. Know that you can come to us for information and support and resources. We are here for you guys. Like, just utilize us, right, as a resource too, and you know, we'll get through it together.
Also, so on this final slide, I do have the appointment information. So if you want to make an appointment to see June, someone at the SRC, you want to see your EOP Advisor, or if you're kind of just exploring majors and you want a little bit more direction, we also have the Career Services and Leadership Development program here. So please take a screenshot of this screen and check them out. We really, really are here for you 24/7, so please ask us anything. I always tell my students that if there's something I don't know, I will ask someone, and hopefully, you know, we'll find the answer for you, right? So please reach out to us. Don't feel that you are alone, like, especially if you are considering pre-nursing. It is an incredibly difficult and rigorous major. It's also one of the most noble fields there is. So know that you have a support team here. A huge reason we wanted to do this EOP AMA series was because a lot of our students didn't actually know people in the fields that they were curious about. They were a little bit hesitant to reach out to other advisors in the colleges. So we kind of wanted to create the space where we're inviting folks in and bringing everyone to you. So I really appreciate everyone coming, especially our guest speakers, V, Daniella, and June, and my colleagues at EOP. Thank you, Martley. If y'all have any other questions, I'll stay around for a little bit longer. I will also send out the resource guide on Monday. So everything that we talked about today, I'll try to populate that list, and over the weekend, if any of you want to add to that list, please let me know. Thank you again for coming, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.